Dear students, today we are going to learn Chapter 3, Perceiving and Making Meaning. There are 4 learning objectives in this chapter. Learning Objective 1. Explain how consumer behavior is often shaped by sensory appeals that are often unnoticed. Product and commercial message often appears to our senses, but because of the profusion of this message, we don't notice most of them. This chapter focuses on the process of how we absorb sensations and then use these to interpret the surrounding world. Sensations refers to the biochemical signals that our senses send to our brain for processing. Our sensory receptors, eyes, ears, nose, mouth, fingers, and skin, capture basic stimuli such as light, color, sound, odor, and texture, and send those responses to the brain. Perception is the process by which people select, organize, and interpret these sensations. The study of perceptions then focuses on what we add to these raw sensations to give them meaning. Our brains receive external stimuli or sensory inputs on several channels. These inputs are the raw data that begin the perceptual process. Sensory data from the external environment can generate internal sensory experiences. Marketers' messages are more effective when they appeal to several senses. Sensory marketing. In the new era of sensory marketing, companies think carefully about the impact of sensations on our product experiences. In this section, we will take a closer look at how some smart marketers use our sensory systems to create a competitive advantage. Vision. Marketers rely heavily on visual elements in advertising, store design, and packaging. Given that we increasingly interact with the world in digital space, visual perceptions is even more crucial to website, apps designers, e-commerce platforms, and online advertisers. All 5 main elements of visual perceptions are illuminance, shape, surface color, materiality, and location. Color may even influence our emotions more directly. Evidence suggests that red creates feelings of arousal and stimulates appetite, and blue creates more relaxing feelings. For example, men-red women who wear red are more attractive than those who wear blue. We also associate the color black with color. Some reactions to color come from learned associations. In Western countries, black is the color of mourning, whereas in some Eastern countries, especially Japan, white plays this role. dollar and cents. Odor stirs emotions or create a calming feeling. They evoke memories or relieve stress. There is a study found that subjects show higher recall of a test brand attributes if it was embedded with a scent. And this effect persists as long as 2 weeks after the experiment. Some of our response to scents results from early associations that call out good or bad feelings. And that explains why businesses explore connections among smell, memory, and mood. For example, researchers found that for many people, the smell of coffee summons up childhood memories of their mother cooking breakfast, so the aroma reminds them of home. Sound. Music and other sounds affects people's feelings and behavior. Pitch. Music can intensify emotional reactions to commercials or slow or speed shoppers' pace inside stores. New research shows that certain perceptual characteristics of music, like pitch, can even cue morality and thus make us behave better. For example, a recent study found that hearing high-pitched music compared to low-pitched music lead people to be more disciplined in their choice and ultimately make healthier choices, such as selecting lower-calorie foods. In conclusion, high-pitched music is one way to make people behave better. Pitch also helps consumers make inference about the size of a product. Lower pitch in voice or music leads consumers to make a larger product size. This pitch size effect occurs because we tend to visualize what we hear. It is a cross-modal effect where two different sensation systems influence one another. So, when we hear low-pitched sounds or music, we tend to visualize a larger objects because larger objects in real life do tend to produce lower-pitched sounds. Sound symbolism. Some marketers who come up with brand names pay attention to sound symbolisms, or the process by which the way a word sounds influence our assumptions about what it describes and attributes, such as size. For example, consumers are more likely to recognize brand names that begin with a hard consonant, like a K for Kellogg's or P for Pepsi. Touch. We tend to want to touch objects, although typing or using a mouse are skills we have to learn. The proliferations of touchscreens on computers, ATM machines, digital cameras, GPS devices, and e-readers is an outgrowth of the natural user interface philosophy of computer design. This approach incorporates habitual human movements that we don't have to learn. Besides that, it seems that encouraging shoppers to touch a product encourages them to imagine their own it. And researchers know that people value things more highly if they own them. This is known as the endowment effect. The power of touch even translates to online shopping, where touchscreens create a stronger feelings of psychological ownership compared to product consumers explore using a touchpad or mouse. Haptic or touch sense plays in consumer behavior. Many consumers feel more comfortable purchasing a product after physically examining it. The COVID-19 pandemic made consumers especially liable to touch products in stores and even more liable to touch or be touched by other people. In general, researchers have found that people like a product less and are less likely to buy it if another person has touched it earlier. Many studies have found evidence of these contamination effects. Contamination effects means consumers are less likely to buy a t-shirt left on the return rack in a waiting room than the exact same t-shirt on the normal shopping rack. Some Japanese companies take the importance of touch a step further via their practice of Kansei engineering. It is a philosophy that translates customers' feelings into design elements. Taste. Our taste receptors obviously contribute to our experience of many products. All foods are a combination of 5 basic tastes: sweetness, sourness, bitterness, saltiness, and umami. Umami is a meaty or broathy sensations we get in diverse foods, such as mushrooms, tomatoes, and even breast milk. All our senses interact with one another to influence taste. Some researchers found that each additional bite of food can be increasingly pleasurable. They call this hedonic escalation and find that this escalation is especially likely when a food is made of a complex combinations of flavors and when we are motivated to identify more of this flavor in each bite. Next, augmented and virtual reality. Welcome to the metaverse. Augmented reality, or AR, refers to media that superimpose one or more digital layers of data, images, or video over a physical object. Today, AR has been used in many aspects, from gaming to shopping. Even advertising messages can be augmented to generate more immersive, interactive, and lifelike environment. AR can be used in retail settings to facilitate product evaluations prior to purchase and to test its impacts on sales. AR reduces uncertainties and increase confidence in purchasing the products, as it makes us more likely to try risky options. It can provide an engaging alternative for consumers who want to try products such as makeup or furniture virtually before they commit. Learning Objective 2. Outline the 3-stage process of perceptions that translates raw stimuli into meaning. Figure 3.1 shows the 3 stages of exposure, attention, and interpretation make up the process of perception. Stage 1. Exposure. Exposure occurs when a stimulus comes within the range of someone's sensory receptors. Sensory threshold is the point at which it is strong enough to make a conscious impact in their awareness. The science of physiophysics focuses on how people integrate the physical environment into their personal and subjective worlds. Absolute threshold refers to the minimum amount of stimulations a person can detect on a given sensory channel. The absolute threshold is an important consideration when we design marketing stimuli. The differential threshold refers to the ability of a sensory system to detect changes in or differences between two stimuli. The minimum difference we can detect between two stimuli is the just noticeable difference, J and D. The amount of change required for the perceiver to notice a change systematically relates to the intensity of the original stimulus. The stronger the initial stimulus, the greater the change must be for us to notice it. This relationship is Weber law. When a brand tries to modernize its logo, it must walk a fine line because consumers tend to get tired of old-fashioned designs, but they still want to be able to identify the familiar products. Figure 3.2 shows the evolutions of the Betty Cooker's character over time. The myth of subliminal perception. Subliminal perceptions refers to a stimulus below the level of the consumer's awareness, whereas pre-attentive processing explains that we are able to process information and develop positive brand responses even when we are not directly or deliberately paying attention to a brand message. Stage 2, attention. Attention refers to the extent to which processing activities is devoted to a particular stimulus. Consumers often experience sensory overload because they are exposed to far more information that they can process. Multitasking happens when they process information from more than one medium at a time. Researchers find that heavy multitaskers have more trouble focusing, and they experience more stress. One study found that people who are interrupted by email report significantly more stress than those who are allowed to focus on a task. Multi-screening, using another media screen while watching television, is a very common form of multitasking. Researchers who synthesize all research testing the effect of multi-screening conclude that multi-screening has dramatic effects on advertising effectiveness. It reduces our attention to advertisements, but also makes us counter-argue them less. In the online world, advertisers keep innovating ways to get visitors to watch their message. One of the most popular today is rich media. Rich media is the use of animated GIF files or video clips to grab viewers' attentions. Because the brand capacity to process information is limited, consumers are selective about what they pay attention to. The process of perceptual selections means that people attend to only a small portion of the stimuli to which they are exposed. Consumers pick and choose among stimuli to avoid being overwhelmed. How do marketers get attentions? In general, we are more likely to notice stimuli that differ from others around them. A message creates constraints in several ways. For example, size, color, position, and novelty. Factors leading to adaptation. Adaptation is the degree to which consumers continue to notice a stimulus over time. The process of adaptation occurs when we no longer pay attention to a stimulus because it is so familiar. Several factors can lead to adaptations, including intensity, discrimination, exposure, and relevance. Stage 3. Interpretation. The meaning we assign to a stimulus depends on the schema or set of beliefs to which we assign it. This in turn leads us to compare the stimulus to other similar ones we encountered in the past. As a result, interpretation is very much based on our subjective experiences, our cultural background, our personal sensitivities, and our expectations. Two people can see or hear the same event, but their interpretations of it can be as different as night and day, depending on what they had expected the stimulus to be. One factor that determines how we will interpret a stimulus is relational processing. This happens when we process a stimulus in relation to the relationships it has with other events, sensations, or image in memory. Interpretational bias, the eye of the beholder. Our brains tend to relate incoming sensations to others already in memory, based on some fundamental organizational principles. These principles derive from Gestalt psychology. It is a school of thought based upon the notion that people interpret meanings from the totality of a set of stimuli rather than from any individual stimulus. The Gestalt perspective provides several principles that relate to the way our brain organizes stimuli. Number 1, the closure principle states that people tend to perceive an incomplete picture as complete. Number 2, the similarity principle tells us that consumers tend to group together objects that share similar physical characteristics. Number 3, the figure ground principle states that one part of a stimulus will dominate the figure, and other parts recede into the background, the ground. And finally, joint versus separate. Joint versus separate presentations refers to whether products are presented as a group or independently of one another. Learning Objective 3. Discuss how the field of semiotics helps us understand how consumers create meanings out of symbols. The field of semiotics can help us understand how consumers interpret the meanings of symbols. This discipline studies the correspondence between signs and symbols and their roles in how we assign meanings. Semiotics is a key link to decoding consumer behavior because consumers use products to express their social and cultural identities. From a semiotics perspective, every marketing message has three basic components: an object, a sign or symbol, and an interpretant. The object is the product that is the focus of the message. The sign is the sensory image that represents the intended meaning of the object. The interpretant is the meaning we derive from the sign. Figure 3.3 diagrams this relationship. Note that this meaning depends a lot upon a person's prior knowledge and experiences. Signs relate to objects in one of three ways. They can resemble objects, connect to them, or tie to them conventionally. An icon is a sign that resembles the products in some way. An index is a sign that connects to a product because they share some properties. A symbol is a sign that relates to a product by either conventional or agree-on associations. Learning Objective 4. Describe how consumers play an active role in shaping brand meanings. Positioning strategy is a fundamental component of a company's marketing effects as it uses elements of the marketing mix, that is product, design, price, distribution, and marketing communications to influence consumers' interpretations of its meanings in the marketplace relative to its competitors. Marketers can use many dimensions to carve out a brand's positions in the marketplace. These include lifestyle, price leadership, attributes, product class, competitors, occasions, users, quality, and country of origin. But ultimately, brand meanings live in consumers' minds. It is important to keep in mind that customers are not just buying a product or service, they are buying a story. And this meaning making may have more to do with what consumers do with the brand than what a brand communicates by its color, packaging, or styling. The meaning of brands lives in consumers' minds. It is reflected in what they do and say about the brand. Social media make it all the easier for consumers to express what they think about the brand, whether good or bad. And these consumers generated message about the brand are even more powerful and influential than the ones marketers are sending. Consumers' active role in shaping brands' meanings keeps brands alive and dynamic. Here, we come to the end of this chapter. Thank you.